All right, let's go to my panel. Avis Jones Weaver, Leadership Strategist, Exceptional Leadership Institute for Women. Andrew Lee, Republican Strategist. Angela Peoples, Co-Director for Get Equal. Andrew, I'll let you start being a Republican Strategist. What do you make of what we just heard?
I think it was a missed opportunity, Roland. I mean, to come out of a meeting with a presidential candidate and not have any policy goals or can't even talk to us about what was discussed substantive to the black community, I think it was a failure. I think it's a failure of Trump to say that he was expecting an endorsement from black clergy. I think it's a failure of our community to say we shouldn't even meet with presidential candidates if we disagree with them. I think it was great to take the meeting, but to not have any substantive policy means, what were you doing there?
Angela, I talked to pastors who were in that meeting before they went in. I talked to some of those yesterday who were in the room. And I've looked at all the interviews. And if I take all the interviews together, I probably could break down policy in 60 seconds more than what I heard out of all the interviews together. I don't know what the hell they talked about for 2.5 hours.
Well, I think you're right. I think Andrew's point about it being a missed opportunity is correct, but I think it's a missed opportunity to actually talk about what the political process needs to be and should be, right? The idea that Donald Trump expected to just walk in and get an endorsement from these pastors, and the idea that these pastors would give some sort of illusion that would be happening without having a conversation. I doubt that Donald Trump has even considered thinking about who the people are in those congregations. And my question to the pastor would be, actually, what questions did you ask that were reflective of the people that you're supposed to be representing, the people that pay your salary, the people that pay their tithes every Sunday? What questions did you ask that actually reflected their experiences, what they're seeing in their communities, being over-policed in their schools, being denied access to loans? What questions did you actually ask besides just being in the room with this candidate because 109 pastors have never done that before?
Let me give y'all some context. First of all, there was a meeting with Trump of black pastors in October.
Sure.
One of those pastors called my radio show yesterday. He told me Trump was an hour and a half late. He got there, spoke for 1 minute, then they had a news conference. They had no opportunity for a Q&A. This brother said he drove, it was Pastor Thompson, drove from Cincinnati, Ohio. He said nothing took place. And again, I ain't tripping on anybody meeting with a Republican or Democrat. That doesn't bother me. But when you can't come out of the room and tell me, if you tell me you ain't talk about housing, with a real estate developer, you didn't talk about the issue of access to capital. I'm trying to figure out what the hell did you talk about. And Pastor Darrell Scott, who organized this from Ohio, did he bring up John Crawford being shot and killed in a Walmart in an open carry state? Did he bring up Pastor James Davis, who was on CNN with Jamal Bryant from Cleveland? Did he bring up Tamir Rice? So I'm like, what were y'all just happy to be in the room, or did you have a true prophetic voice and saying something while you're in the room?
It sounds like to me, we have to get to a point as a people where we're politically savvy enough to be able to take advantage of these situations where we hold people's feet to the fire and actually expect to have substantive information at the conclusion of these meetings. The bottom line is, the pastor was so stuck on financial literacy. I have a financial literacy tip. Stop giving 10% of our income to individuals and institutions that don't represent our interests when we need them to represent our interests. That was a complete and utter failure.
Andrew, again, if I'm a Republican and I'm trying to get the black vote and trying to grab it, I'm gonna come to the meeting with something substantive.
Yeah, I think this is a case study in what not to do. I mean, I think that what we've seen with Campaign Zero and Black Lives Matter, there are substantive policy proposals around police brutality. We're seeing independent prosecutors being appointed in New York with Governor Cuomo. I know that that's been called for in Chicago. There actually needs to be substantive policy here. I mean, from body cameras to independent juries. I think you're right, Avis, that not being informed is not acceptable anymore in 2016.
Well, I think it also says, it's as clear to me, for Donald Trump for sure, and potentially other Republican candidates, that there is a lack of seriousness that they're offering to the black community, and also specifically to this moment that we're in, where you see people across the country. There's literally occupations that are happening across the country that are targeting police violence, racism in the criminal justice system, police literally shooting at black folks, just even as as they're protesting or accused of shooting at protesters. And so if the lack of even intention and attention to these issues shows that the Republican Party is not taking this seriously, and they're not going to be taking it seriously through 2016.
I'll have to disagree with you on that, because we actually had a presidential forum in South Carolina, a criminal justice forum, where Ben Carson was there. A lot of the presidential candidates were there. So Republicans are talking about it.
But what did they speak to? But what
here's-
issues did they speak to specifically to what's coming up in this current conversation about Black lives? What did they talk about when it comes to the high rates of police of Black folks being killed by the police? What did they talk about when there's
Right.
no accountability, lack of special prosecutors, lack of charges? Did they speak to any of those issues? And if they didn't, then they're not taking this moment seriously, and they don't deserve Black votes.
And I would agree with you, but they actually were talking about criminal justice reform. They were talking about
But criminal justice reform is different than a police officer being targeted and killing a 12-year-old child and then not being held accountable to that.
Absolutely.
This is very simple for me. And look, and let me say this right now. Pastor Darrell Scott, Pastor, the other guy, Mark Evans, Bishop George Bloomer, and to the other 106 who were in the room. Y'all have an open invitation to come on this show to talk about what was said in that meeting, but also to talk about what you're going to say in the next meeting. Because if you are going to get media attention and talk about the hype of being a Black pastor and meeting Republican presidential candidate, that's fine. But if you're going to go into the room, at least walk in with a sheet of paper with something on it that represents your communities. And so I don't want to just hear financial literacy. I don't want to hear another prosperity sermon from any of these pastors. If you want to be a true prophetic voice, then you should be following Jesus and talk about stuff that Jesus might actually bring up. But this is what happens when you get pimped and you get played when you are a pastor. And I would say, if you can't come out of the room and talk about what was actually discussed with substance, all you did was have a nice get together and you had a ministerial meeting that served no particular purpose. So again, to every pastor who was in that meeting, come on this show and come talk to Black America about what you talked about with Donald Trump about Black folks. Otherwise, all y'all did was waste your damn time. Coming up, we'll talk about an HBO documentary on the death of Jordan Davis with his mother, Lucy McBath. Also, how can you find Mr. Right? Our author says, I have a way of actually doing it. Trust me, Avis is like, yay. Back on News 1 Now, TV 1 in a moment.